Welcome to another episode of History Saver 1941. We are back in the war room, as you can see, and man, it's been a productive past couple of weeks. A lot of stuff going on and a lot of cool stuff. We've gotten to see a lot of neat things, and the neat things for us here just keep on coming in the efforts to preserve history and tell the story of history to others. Not just through rations, but through the World War II reenacting and different history videos that we do here. And I got a question this past week that got me thinking. Someone asked me about trench art. If you guys are not familiar with trench art was a big thing mainly during World War I, but dates back to the Napoleonic times. During the Napoleonic Wars, trench art really started taking off. The American Revolution, you saw trench art. The American Civil War, you saw trench art. And what trench art was anything made by the soldier in the field. And a lot of times this was done to pass time because of boredom. And other times it was done to make things for people at home, such as your wife, the children, family members. Or it was also done to have a souvenir or a memento of the war. You know, when you're a soldier, you're sitting on the front lines waiting on something to happen for sometimes long periods of time. Boredom kind of gets to you. And a lot of the soldiers were creative, just like, you know, any other person, because they're normal people just in that combat role. And a lot of times they would get bored on the front lines and they would do things to occupy their time. And one of those things was making trench art. Trench art was basically, like I said, anything the soldier would make on the front lines. Now, there are categories of trench art, and there's trench art made by other people, which we'll get into in just a moment. But someone asked me about trench art. Where did trench art come from? How did trench art get started? What is the story behind trench art? Because as you know, and I do too, you walk in any antique store, you see these old artillery shells. Most of the time, that's what it is. And it's just got flowers on it as a design or different things as it's been made into. And they're often very beautiful. And, you know, this person asked me, well, was that commercially made? Well, the answer is yes and no. There are a lot of different things that could be considered trench art. And some things people do not realize. For instance, I've got several examples here. This, for example, is a Russian mess kit lid. This come out of a bunker over on the Eastern Front. And if you'll notice, it has a name carved in it. But notice how that name is carved in. If the camera picks it up here, it's real fine lines. And this is basically what you see all across all the countries for trench art. You know, this is considered trench art. Even though this is just a simple name of a soldier, this was something that he did, I can almost guarantee you, not only to mark his stuff, but to pass the time. And it helped pass the time when he was in the bunker or in the trench or wherever he was. Now, do not ask me what that says because I really cannot read it. But it is just very cool. And this is an original piece that was did by a Soviet soldier. And you can see how much his mess kit lid was used. You can see the burn marks. You can see the knife and fork marks inside of it from where he's actually eaten out of this. And these are the things that drive me to military and to World War II relics. And these are the things that need to be preserved for future generations. Because, I mean, this is just neat in itself. And another thing, when I was going through this and looking over it, you'll see lines carved in the handle here. And that is something that the soldier actually did. So, and it just makes this item much more special to me. So, very neat item. But other things that soldiers would do is carve on simple, you know, U.S. soldiers, they would carve on simple canteen cups or cigarette cases. Metal cigarette cases were a big thing with German, Russian, and American soldiers. They would carve different pictures or designs or whatever inside of these things to make them a little bit more ornate, you know, and just to have something to do while passing the time. And you also see the same thing on American mess kits. This, of course, does not have anything on it. It is an original mess kit, but I'm just giving you an example here of some of the things they would actually did some of this trench rod on, especially during the Second World War. And canteens were another big thing. You can see pictures of canteens everywhere with all kinds of ornate designs and different things. And we're going to pop a couple of those up for you to look at while I'm talking. But, this is original canteen for 42 during World War II, side seam canteen. But this is one of the items that soldiers like carving things on. And how would they do this? Well, they would do it with a knife, of course, a bayonet, or they would sometimes even use a bullet. And they would just simply carve in, whatever with a bullet. Now, bullets themselves were considered a artwork item for the soldier that was in the trenches. You can see all kinds of different trench art that's been made from bullet casings and bullets themselves, from crosses to just other ornate designs. Of course, you see the cigarette ashtrays made out of the head of a artillery shell, and it's got some kind of bullets in there. They use them as stands on some of those things. So bullets in itself were actually used quite a bit for trench art. And one of the examples that I do have on my collection of bullets being made is this swagger stick. This was generally an officer's thing. I think this is from World War II due to the 43 date on the end of the bullet here. And this is a 50 cal bullet, if I'm not mistaken. But he has placed his marksmanship badge inside of it, on it. And then this, I believe, from what I've been told, is a piece off of some kind of artillery igniter. So basically he's taking that, and then the end of the bullet serves as the end here. And they will use this to point to maps or on boards or whatever. And it's just it's called a swagger stick. So this item is one of the things that I have in my collection that's very cool. And I picked this up at an antique store, I think for $3. But I noticed the 43 date right there. So that tells me at least the bullet casing is from 1943, the World War II time frame. Now, the most common trench art that you guys see is made of these right here, artillery casings. Artillery casings, you can find these things all over the place. This is your common trench art find in any antique store, or when you Google pictures of trench art, pretty much you're going to see artillery shells. Now, this is a small artillery shell. The artillery shell you're going to be used to seeing is a trench art artillery shell that looks like this. And this is from the First World War, and these are common for the First World War. Now, you can see on the bottom the markings on this artillery shell, and it echoes. But you can see the markings on the bottom of this artillery shell. This is a piece of trench art from the First World War, and it is original. I am fascinated by trench art. I love collecting it because it gives you that personal connection with that soldier. It kind of brings you in your hands a piece of their creation. And how are these created? Well, the simple answer for that is they will make these with whatever they had, believe it or not. And it was, you could tell this didn't take, overnight to do, but it's just very neat. I don't know how he made this, honestly. Whatever soldier made this was very talented, more talented than myself. And this is just very cool. I can't wrap my head around how special these items are. People pass these by all the time in antique stores. They don't give it a second look. They say, oh, a flower vase. Yeah, this is not a flower vase. Yes, it can be used for a flower vase, but it's much more special than that. This artillery shell actually probably saw combat, was probably actually spent, and the soldier picked it up and said, hey, let me carve a flower into this because I'm bored. Basically, that's the way it went. And these items are very cool. Now, for trench art, you had different kinds of trench art. You had basically, I'm going to call it 4 categories. You had the trench art made by the soldier themselves. You had trench art made by civilians. You had trench art made by the POW or the prisoner of war. And then you had commercially made trench art. Now, when I say commercially made trench art, what do I mean? So, you telling me that this come out of a factory? No, I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you that after the war, after World War One, people saw the people wanting souvenirs. There were so many of these things, these empty brass casings around, that companies saw that they could actually sell these as souvenirs. So they actually started making trench art. And there are many documented cases of this, and you could actually Google it, look it up, Wikipedia it, whatever you want to do. But was this widespread? Kind of, sort of, but not really. And it didn't really last that long. But how long did the art of making trench art last? A lot of people say, well, soldiers do not do that now. I beg to differ. And if you search online, it'll say trench art kind of phased out after World War II. Yeah, it did, but did it? Because I know guys who have served overseas in Iraq, Afghanistan, that, made stuff while they were there. That's trench art. And guys who were in Vietnam made stuff while they were there because they were bored, necklaces, whatever it may be. That's trench art. Guys in Korea, the Gulf War, made stuff while they were there. That's trench art. Because, they may have wanted a souvenir for their stuff to bring home. They may have wanted something to give their families. But nevertheless, if you make something overseas out of nothing other than what you have, using basically whatever tools is at your disposal, to me, that is considered trench art. So, does trench art really stop with World War I and World War II? I don't think it stops with the Great War. I don't think it stops with World War II. I think it keeps going until today. It's always been a part of military history, and these items all tell a cool story. So, there you go. There's a little bit about trench art, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you for watching as always, and we've got a lot more content coming up. Guys, go check out The History Underground. JD for The History Underground is an awesome guy. It's an awesome YouTube channel. And he does an awesome job taking the audience to different historic sites, introducing them to history. And he is doing a great job preserving history for the future generations. JD is actually a teacher, and he's doing some great stuff on that channel. And guys, he's been everywhere from the Old West to Bastogne and Normandy to Civil War battlefields all over the country to small museums like the little White House where FDR resided. And, places like this are just immersed in our nation's history, immersed in world history, and it's important to preserve them and tell the stories about the people and events that happened there. And he does an awesome job on this channel doing that. And you guys will actually get to meet JD briefly on the channel here, as we do have plans to join him later in the short future. So you will actually see him here on History Saver 1941, which is very cool. He's one of my favorite channels to watch as a viewer. And guys, I urge you to go support his channel, subscribe to his channel. He's doing a lot of great things for history. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, keep preserving history. Stay safe. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you soon.